Hello again and welcome to another Warhammer 40k Morty and Glory video. In today's episode we shall be continuing our analysis of the 10th edition Guard Index, this time casting our critical eye across the tank commander. Riding into battle within their metal steeds, tank commanders have always been seen as the nerve center of any good Guard armored force, whether that's a detachment of tanks within your list or a full-blown armored company. But all is not well in the motor pool, for it seems like our beloved tank commanders may be going the way of the dodo in this new index. You know what? Let's rip the bandage off, mount up, roll out, and dive right into today's video. As is tradition, let us begin with a brief overview of what the hell a tank commander even is. This is for our newer players, perhaps you're getting into 40k for the first time with 10th edition, and also veteran players who might be new to the Guard as a faction. The good news is that tank commanders are pretty straightforward. It's just a standard Leman Russ battle tank that happens to have an officer in it, which means it can do some orders and support the other vehicles in your army. They work in basically the same way as your Cadian Castellans. They are officers which are going to hand out buffs to the units around them, except for whereas the Castellan focuses on infantry, the tank commander can only issue orders to other vehicles. In the lore, the Leman Russ of a tank commander is traditionally equipped with a Vanquisher battle cannon, these exotic, rare and powerful weapons being reserved for the officer class. However, on the tabletop, you can equip your Leman Russ with whatever turret weapon you want. And in fact, there was a time not that long ago when spamming tank commanders with demolished battle cannons was a go-to competitive tactic for Imperial Guard players. And as crazy as this might sound, less than a year ago, every Guard commander worth their salt was slapping 3 tank commanders into all of their army lists because they were just such a good fundamental unit to have. And this was fully encouraged by Games Workshop at the time with the introduction of tank commander specific relics such as the Gatekeeper battle cannon. You also had tank aces, many of which could only be put on your officers in your Leman Russes. And finally, towards the end of 9th edition, there was a list that was called Oops, I Took All Leman Russes, which consisted of 12 battle tanks being led by a trio of commanders. But my, how fate can be a cruel bitch. Because it seems like our once beloved tank commanders are now going to be a rare sight in our army lists and on the battlefield indeed. You know what? Let's stop with the history lesson and let's start taking a look at this new datasheet. On the surface, there doesn't look like there's much to be concerned about. The tank commander has the same basic stat line as a regular Leman Russ. You've got that decent movement of 10, it'll get you around the battlefield. T11, 2+ save, 13 wounds, all good shit. All things that I praised in the Leman Russ overview video. And then you've got that leadership 7, which I've commented on this before with some of our other officers. It would have been nice for our officers to have a slightly better leadership than our regular guards, but it's fine. It is what it is at the end of the day, and it's still an okay leadership to have. It's not like, you know, some factions where their leadership is looking at like 8+, and suddenly that becomes very tricky if you're going to start passing those battle shock tests. But for us in the Guard, 7+ is just about right. And then you've also got an objective control of 3, which, whilst not great, is not terrible and means that you can at least contribute towards controlling some objectives. And things start to look up, and we begin to get a sense of false hope when we look at the tank commander's weapons and war gear options. Because unlike other Leman Russes like the Battle Tank, the Demolisher, the Exterminator, who are limited in taking only one turret weapon, Tank Commander can take whatever big gun it wants, making it really flexible, and you can tailor it to a variety of battlefield situations. You might need a tank commander who can sit back and provide orders to your long-range fire support units. In that case, give him a battle cannon or Vanquisher cannon. Or maybe you need a tank commander who can support line-breaking operations via your demolishers. We'll give him his own demolisher battle cannon and then start thinking about what sponsors you're going to give him. Because like any good Russ, Tank Command has access to all of the different support systems. Heavy flamers for clearing infantry up close and personal. Heavy bolters for long-range anti-infantry DACA. You can even take things like hunter killers and heavy stubbers to season your Rus with a bit more firepower. You've got the classic las cannon for tank busting activities. And you've got melter for more tank busting and plasma cannons for elite infantry. My point is here, guys. On the surface, not only can the Tank Command take all the sponsons that any other Rus can, but also it's got that flexible top. So where's the rub? Where do things start becoming a problem? Well, things start going rapidly downhill when we move over to the abilities. To begin with, the Tank Commander is not a leader. This means it cannot attach to any other units. Now, you might not think that's very surprising. It is a big tank after all, but this is 10th edition. Most characters can either attach to a squad, which gives them loads of ablative wounds, or they are lone operatives, which means you can't target them outside of 12 inches. And there's a very good reason for this. 10th edition still has plenty of lethality in it, and your characters are still going to need to be protected. But the Tank Commander doesn't have any of that. It's got to rely upon its own stat line. And whilst that stat line is decent, any amount of focus anti-tank is going to pop it. If your opponent slings las cannons into this thing, it's going to die like Lehman Russ is. It's still going to get hit on 3s, probably be rolling if you're facing off against Marines or someone similar. And then they're going to get wounded on 3s by any kind of anti-tank. So whilst they're tough against small arms, dedicated AT shouldn't have much of a problem with the Tank Commander. And it can't be protected by joining another Rus. We then move on to the next ability, which is Vox Net, which on the surface looks like a buff, but actually it's a bit of a problem. Vox Net allows you to issue an order to an eligible unit up to 12 inches away. This seems great, right? Your infantry officers can only issue orders to those units that are within 6 inches of them, so having a 12-inch range is great, right? But unfortunately, it's not. Because firstly, your infantry officers are going to be embedded, thanks to having leader, inside of squads. So whether they are 6 inches away or 1 inch away doesn't really matter. They're just going to be focused on their immediate area. But if they do need to do long range orders, they have access to the Master Vox. Now, any Cadian or Platoon Command Squad can take a Master Vox caster, and that allows you to issue orders up to 24 inches away. And not just the Command Squad, but any other officer that is part of that Blob Squad that's been attached to the Infantry, the Krieg, the Cadians, or the Katachans. That means you could have a Lord Solar and have a Platoon Command Squad attached to a unit of Krieg, and the Lord Solar can use the Master Vox to issue his orders 24 inches away. Tank Commander simply can't do that. Tank Commander is limited to 12 inches away, and therefore the area of the battlefield that he can affect is pretty limited. And what compounds this even further is the fact that the Tank Commander can only issue one order. And orders don't splash around anymore to multiple units like they did in 9th edition. That means each tank commander can literally support one other vehicle on the board, whether that's one Basilisk, or one Hellhound, or one other Lemurs. That's it. He has one order. That's all he's bringing to the table. This is a huge problem because it completely undermines the reason for taking tank commanders. They are supposed to be able to support your armored forces, but they've got such a limited capacity to do so. And what's tragic is they can't even order themselves. So you're having to take a Lehman Russ to support another Lehman Russ. And you want to support that other Lehman Russ because you want it to be as powerful as possible. You want it to be hitting on +1 with take aim. But you're literally spending hundreds of points on trying to make another vehicle better. It's almost like you're chasing a sunk cost fallacy. You're throwing bad money after good. And what begins to make this entire thing completely farcical is the fact that you could take a Lord Solar who can do 3 orders and do them to any guard unit. Because the tank commander is very limited in who he can boss around. He can only boss around squadron vehicles. That means he can't boss around any infantry, and importantly, it means he can't boss around any super heavies. Now, he might be totally worth it if he was the only model that could boss around super heavies, but he can't. He can't even do that. The Lord Solar does the tank commander's job way better than he does, and for a much more cost-effective price point. Because the tank commander, the real nail in the coffin, is his points value. He is 240 points. He is by far the most expensive Leman Russ that we can take, and he's not bringing all that much to the table. He's more expensive than a Demolisher. He's more expensive than an Exterminator, both of which were touted as S-tier vehicles for the Guard. And he doesn't come with their cool abilities. He can't fire into combat like a Demolisher can. And he can't pin down the enemy and make their armor saves worse like an Exterminator. His main job is to support your other tanks. But he costs more than them. And it's a basic principle of 40k. If you're spending more points on supporting a unit than on that unit itself, that's not a good points investment for you. I don't want to flog a dead horse, but to really put this into perspective, you could take a single tank commander who is going to do one order within a 12-inch range, or for basically the same points, you could take a Lord Solar, an infantry squad, and a command squad that they can all join together and have a unit that can issue 3 orders 24 inches away. And that includes to any vehicles. There's just no comparison. Why would you ever want to take that tank commander? Now, I know some people down in the comments section right now are going to be furiously typing, but Mordian Glory, you could give your tank commander Grand Strategist and then he can issue 2 orders. This is absolutely correct, and it's definitely something you're going to want to consider if you really have got your heart set on taking a tank commander. In fact, it's almost mandatory that you're going to need to take Grand Strategist. But now you're just throwing more points into the mix. Now your tank commander's gone from 240 to 255. So now he's costing more than that Lord Solar combo we were just talking about. And you're not doing any better. You're not even matching. You're spending more points to not match a better combination. It's comically bad how terrible the tank commander is at his job. Because you could take 3 tank commanders and it would cost you 720 points to do 3 orders to vehicles. Or you could take 1 Lord Solar and it would cost you 125. Now, I know why Games Workshop has priced the tank commander in this way. It's not actually hard to understand. They've gone, right, what is the most expensive Leman Russ in 10th edition? It's a Demolisher. Okay, 220 points. What if we wanted to make that Demolisher do an order? How much would we add on top of that? 20 points? Yeah, 20 points seems about right. Boom. Done. That's the equation they followed. But they've forgotten that whilst the tank commander fundamentally is a Leman Russ and fundamentally it can do damage, and I get that, they don't realise that's not the main reason we're taking them. Because we already have Leman Russes, normal ones, to do damage. The job of the tank commander, I'll say it once, I'll say it a million times, is to make your other vehicles better. And it doesn't matter whether I have a tank commander doing that, or Lord Solar doing that, or any other unit. Whatever unit it may be, as long as it's making my other Russes and my other vehicles work harder, that's the route I'm going to go down. And I'm going to go for the most point-efficient option that I have. The fact that tank commander comes with all these guns is nice, but it's not why I'm taking him, because I've got plenty of other damage dealers in my force. But there's one last thing, one final insult about the tank commander that we need to discuss. And that is its ability called Death Befitting an Officer. Now on the surface, this sounds really cool. When this model is destroyed, roll a d6. On a 2+, do not remove it from play. It can, after the attacker model's unit has finished making its attacks, shoot as if it were your shooting phase and as if it had 4 wounds remaining. Brilliant, right? Before he dies, he gets to let off one final volley before he's removed from the board. Well, no, it's terrible. Because in order for you to get this ability, your tank commander needs to die. It's not like an Exterminator who gets to just dagger down the opponent every turn, spreading around that extra AP love. No. In an ideal world, you'll never get to do Death Befitting an Officer because your tank commander's not going to die. But that means you're paying points for an ability which you're not going to use. And yeah, it's like Vengeful Salute from the old 9th edition book. But anyone who used Vengeful Salute will tell you it was an alright ability, but it wasn't great. Occasionally you caught someone out with it. But don't forget, this guy's hitting on a 4+. And if he dies to any sort of long-range firepower, and he's been equipped with things like Demarche cans and flavors, he's not going to be able to get that off. So my point is, like, it's super situational, and it's only going to kick in when something bad is happening. It's like when people used to tell me, oh yeah, I love taking hellhounds because I can throw them into the enemy, and then when they blow up, they do mortal wounds. Like, yeah, that is true, but why the hell are you taking a hellhound based on its ability to do some mortal wounds when it dies? When it dies, it's gone. That's it. That's all it's contributes. It's not doing anything else. You shouldn't be taking abilities that are good or that pop off when your unit dies. You should be taking things that are active every turn, that contribute to your unit's damage output every turn. And so Death Befitting an Officer looks like a good ability, but it's actually a bit of a trap. Well, at least that's my take on the situation. But remember, all of this is just like my opinion, man. Let me know what you think down in that comment section below. Do you plan on taking tank commanders, or do you think they're going to sit on your shelf for a while? If you've enjoyed today's video, don't forget to smash that like button and also subscribe to never miss an episode. And if you found today's video particularly interesting, please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, you'll be helping me create more content and also unlocking a whole host of perks for yourself. The biggest one being access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,000 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got 10th edition tactics, army lists, strategy channels. We've got places for hobbying and painting. In fact, we're running a painting competition right now. And we've even got a pretty spicy meme section as well. In fact, I'd just like to take a moment to say a big thank you to all of the latest channel members. Thank you to War Tactics, William Holmes, Ronnie, Philip McCary, Fraggle, Adlaw, Tanro93, Adam B, Manny P, Wizzo55, Flowrider, Tyler James, Alejandro, Honest Man Dave, Mr. Kaiserman, Used Car Jockey, Clyde Tarkus, None of Your Business, Paul B, Enclave Vet, The Doom Melon, Boomber PMAK, Anne Krung, D King, The Bloody Talker, Peaches the Destroyer, Sangao, Traitora, Michael F, Caleb Watson, Carpathian, and Scott Collins. Thank you guys for doing your part. I also want to do a shout out to the latest Patreon supporters as well. So a huge thank you to Mrs. Rogue Merc, Raphael the Third Angel, Maximus, Dixon the Third, Ronnie Dodd, Nick Ellingham, Pinked Guard, James Kiddy, Apollo Stratus, Meg Sumner, The Dark Warfare, Benjamin Hilker, Charles Hartman, and the Elder Kine. And last, but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreon supporters. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a massive thank you to Alan Blunt III, Bon Vert, Mark Panconi, Ross Miller, Swordfish Trombone, John Stubbs, Diesel Fox, and August Varney. Thank you guys. Your ongoing and incredible support makes a huge difference, and it is a big part of how I'm able to do Mordian Glory full time. I hope you've all enjoyed today's video. Thank you for watching, and of course, as always, I'll see you guys next time.